Welcome to Millennium Daytime Bulletin. I'm Shweta Simar from New Delhi, and you are watching Millennium News Channel 24. Today I'm bringing you the latest updates from around the world. Let's begin with today's top headlines. Ghanaians vote in high-stakes election as former leader eyes Trump-like comeback. China imposes sanctions on 13 United States firms over arms sales to Taiwan. Taiwan detects 16 Chinese military aircrafts, 13 vessels near its territory. Sunita Williams complete 6 months in space to remain on International Space Station till February. South Korea president ordered arrest of own party leader. Yunus consults political parties on India-Bangladesh relations, excludes Awami Leagues and allies. TikTok said to be banned in the United States after losing appeal. Global market mixed, US tech gains offset by weakness in the Americas. Stark takes test best as Australia dominate India. "16-year-old sensation Gout runs fourth fastest under 1800 meters of all time." Now let's look at the details. Ghanaians will go to the poll on Saturday to elect their next president as the West African country grapples with its worst economic situation in decades. 12 candidates are vying for the presidency as the current incumbent Nana Akufo-Addo reaches his two-term limit, but the forerunners are seen as dominant parties. The ruling New Patriotic Party (NPP) and the opposition National Democratic Congress (NDC). Opinion polls indicate that voters are split between current Vice President Muhammadu Bawumia and former One President John Mahama, who hopes to achieve a comeback similar to that achieved by US President-elect Donald Trump. The economy is a priority for the electorates. Gottfried Bobkins, an economist and professor of finance at the University of Ghana Business School, told Millennium. But other issues such as high unemployment and a crisis over illegal gold mining locally known as Galamsey will also influence how voters will cast their ballot. A political science lecturer said that Ghanaians have been rallying against environmental degradation caused by unlicensed small-scale mining, a long-standing issue that has left large swaths of land pockmarked by pits and major river polluted. Over the years, illegal mining sites have proliferated despite efforts by successive governments to rein in Galamsey, including military developments by the current government to shut it down. High inflation, youth unemployment, and steep increase in the cost of living are believed to be the main drivers amid a global surge in gold prices. According to data from Ghana Statistical Service, more than 1.3 billion people aged between 15 and 35 were unemployed as of September last year. The country's economy is also reeling from the shock of COVID-19 pandemic, which triggered a rise in poverty levels since 2020, according to the World Bank. It added in an October report that weak economic growth, limited government spending, and high inflation, particularly in food prices, have worsened living standards, pushing more people into poverty and increasing the risk of food insecurity. China has imposed sanctions on 13 United States military companies in retaliation for Washington planned arms sales to Taiwan, a move seen as largely symbolic but which has the potential to disrupt the firm's supply chain. The companies affected are mostly related to drone manufacturing and includes Brink Drones, Shield AI, and Kratos unarmed aerial systems. The Foreign Ministry in Beijing said in an announcement on Thursday, December 5, that the assets of all 13 companies are frozen and no China-based entities can transact or work with them. The countermeasures were warned by the US arms sales to Taiwan that seriously interfere with China's domestic affair and seriously damage China's sovereignty and territorial integrity, the ministry said. 6 senior US executives will additionally be subject to sanctions according to the statement. Taiwan is a self-ruled democracy that remains a key flashpoint in relations between US and China, which views the islands as part of their country. The US backed Taiwan with arms sales that anger Beijing are also politically and economically. Many of the companies targeted by China were part of a delegation that participated in trade missions to Taiwan in September. While China's response is mostly symbolic since the firms have a minimal presence in the country, its previous sanctions against a US drone makers contributed to the supply chain crisis, the Financial Times reported in October 2024. Days before China's latest announcement, Taiwan's president Lai Ching-te visited Hawaii on his first stopover on the US soil during a state visit to Taiwan's Pacific Island allies. Beijing later condemned the US for following him to transit and could respond to Lai stops in Hawaii and Guam with more military drills around Taiwan. People's Liberation Army has already held 2 such set of exercises since Lai took office in May. Shield AI, one of the US firm targeted by China, is developing autonomous technology for aircraft to enable drones to execute a mission without GPS, communication, or remote pilots. Speaking in September during a House Armed Service panel hearing, the company's co-founder Bradon Singh mentioned China among adversaries able to deploy technology to eclipse traditional weapon systems. Taiwan's Ministry of National Defense (MND) has said that 16 Chinese military aircraft, 13 naval vessels, and 2 official ships were detected operating around Taiwan until 6 a.m. on Friday. Of the 16 People's Liberation Army PLA aircraft, 7 aircraft crossed the median line of the Taiwan Strait and entered Taiwan's north, southwestern and eastern air defense identification zone ADIZ, according to Taiwan's MND. In response to China's action, Taiwan sent aircraft and naval ships and deployed coastal-based missile systems to monitor PLA activity. In a statement shared on X, Taiwan's MND stated 16 PLA aircraft, 13 planned vessels, and 2 official ships operating around Taiwan's were detected up until 6 a.m. today. 7 of the aircraft crossed the median line and entered Taiwan's north, southwestern, and eastern ADIZ. We have monitored the situation and responded. So far in December, Taiwan detected Chinese military aircraft 71 times and ships 50 times. Since September 2020, China has been using gray zones tactics by increasing the number of military aircrafts and naval vessels operating around Taiwan. Gray zone tactics are an effort or series of efforts beyond steady state deterrence and assurances that attempts to achieve one's security objectives without resort to direct and sizable use of force. This incident follows a recent pattern of escalated maneuvers by China around Taiwan, raising concerns over regional stability as Beijing continues to assert its claim over the island. Earlier, December 3, Taiwan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs has criticized China's interference in the diplomatic relations of other democratic countries, calling it regrettable that Beijing fails to understand normal diplomatic behaviors between democratic countries and thus frequently takes provocative action, Taipei Times reported. Sunita Williams and Butch Wilmore have been stuck in space for almost 6 months now, and they are likely to remain there for another 4 months. They have been forced to fly Boeing new Starliner crew capsule to the International Space Station, where they continue to remain stranded. The voyage began on June 5 and it was planned for only 1 week, but it has been 6 months now. The capsule started to develop engine problems and leaks, and consequently, NASA declared the capsule unsafe for return journey. The mission now won't be completed until February 2025. NASA, however, objects to the use of the terms stuck or stranded. The two former Navy captains also rejected such a description of their situation. While accepting their circumstances, Butch Wilmore views it as a sort of detour, stating, "We are just on a different path." His mission partner Sunita Williams told students from an elementary school named for her in Needham, Massachusetts, "I like everything about being up here. Just living in space is super fun," she added. This is what the first time these two astronauts have been seen in space, which is why they quickly came and became fully integrated crew, assisting with science experiments and chores such as broken toilets, vacuum air vents, and watering plants. William took over as station commander in September. Boeing returned their Starliner capsule in September, and NASA reassigned Wilmore and Williams to a SpaceX voyage expected to bring the duo back in late February. Wilmore and Williams, like the other station crew, are trained astronauts for spacewalks and other unforeseen scenarios. Associate Administrator Jim Free stated, "When the crew go up, they know they could be there for up to a year." Boeing asserts that Wilmore and Williams' advices have been invaluable and continue the investigation into what went wrong. The firm is now preparing for Starliner next voyage, declining to say when it may fly again. South Korea's President Yoon Suk Yeol ordered the arrest of his own ruling party leader Han Dong-hoon, which he declared martial law on Tuesday night. The arrest list also included the leaders of the main opposition Democratic Party, Lee Jae-myung, as well as 3 opposition lawmakers, the National Intelligence Service deputy director said. The president tried to use this chance to arrest them and wipe them out, said Director Hong Jang-won. The revelation came as the country's political parties held emergency meeting throughout Friday, with MPs planning to bring a vote to impeach Yoon. The motion, which is scheduled for Saturday, will pass if 2/3 of MPs vote for it. The opposition have a majority in the 300-seat parliament but need the support of at least 8 ruling party MPs to secure the 200 votes required for the impeachment motion to pass. In the first clear sign, his own party may now vote with the opposition. The leaders of Yoon ruling party called for his swift suspension on Friday, saying he posed a great danger to democracy if he remained in power. Han Dong-hoon, chief of the People's Power Party (PPP), had earlier in this week said his party would not support the opposition impeachment motion, but on Friday he announced that there was credible evidence that Yoon had ordered the arrest of key politicians, including himself, on anti-state charges on Tuesday. Han said Yoon had planned to jail arrested politicians in a detention center in Gwacheon, a city south of Seoul. He expressed concern that extreme actions such as the martial law declaration could be repeated if Yoon remained in office. Putting the Republic of Korea and its people of great risk, South Koreans spent another day waiting to hear about the fate of their president on Friday. As the impeachment vote loomed in the afternoon, there were reports that the president was heading to parliament, which his office denied, but the opposition MPs lined up to block entry to assembly, chanting "Impeach, impeach." Earlier, Special Forces Commander Kwok Jong-kyun has assured Parliament he would refuse to follow such an order if martial law was declared again, as the opposition have been suggesting it might be. Kwok said on Tuesday night he rejected others to remove MPs from the assembly floor when they were gathering to vote down the martial law declaration. I ordered soldiers not to enter the floor. I ordered that no live ammunition be given out and no harm must come to the civilians, he said. The capital Seoul has seen more than 2 days of street protest demanding Yoon's resignation, while police said he is being investigated for insurrection. Several political parties in Bangladesh on Wednesday, December 4, urged Chief Advisor Mohammad Yunus to hold early elections in the country. The discussion between delegations of leading political parties and the Chief Advisor took place during a meeting that Professor Yunus has called to seek suggestions from political parties on how to counter what was described as aggression against the nation. The meeting, however, did not include the Awami League and its allies. Elections has its own dynamic, and announcement of elections will activate public enthusiasm. This will be helpful for the country. That is why we raised the matter, though it was not the main agenda of today's meeting with Chief Advisor, said Amir Khosrow Mohammad Chaudhry, Standing Committee member of the Bangladeshi Nationalist Party BNP. The Millennium, they told over a phone call from Dhaka that since talking power in August, Professor Yunus has met with political parties on multiple occasions, but this is the first time that such a large meeting was held under the interim government. Professor Yunus has promised to hold consultation with political parties for shaping the path ahead of election, but it is not yet clear if a future election would include the Awami League and its allies who were in power till 5 August. The meeting was called to seek suggestions from political parties about what strategy the interim government should adopt to steer Bangladesh-India relationship, especially in the backdrop of vandalism in the Assistant High Commission of Bangladesh in Tripura's capital Agartala. Apart from fascist Awami League government and their allies, all political parties of Bangladesh participated in the meeting. There were differences of opinion among us, but we were united in our approach to safeguard independence, sovereignty and honor of Bangladesh, said Mr. Nazrul, who is widely regarded as one of the leading spokesperson of the interim government. Asif Nazrul alleged that anti-Bangladesh activities are being supported in India. The meeting condemned India's attempt to establish cultural hegemony over Bangladesh and its economic harassment of our country. It is also condemned that India's attempt to interfere in Bangladesh affairs. The party suggested that government to reveal all agreements that were concluded with India's in the last 15 years and cancel all these agreements that are harmful to Bangladesh, said Asif Nazrul in a statement to media after meeting with political parties. Apart from BNP, Wednesday meeting included Jamaat-e-Islami of Bangladesh, which was represented by its Amir Dr. Shafiqur Rahman and Amar Bangla. Some of the parties suggested that the interim government should create a public relations cell to counter India and constitute a special committee for the minority communities of Bangladesh. TikTok's bid to overturn a law which would see it banned on the sold in the United States from early 2025 has been rejected. The social media company had hoped a federal appeals court would agree with its argument that the law was unconstitutional because it represented a staggering impact on the free speech of its 170 million US users. But the court upheld that the law, which it stated was the culmination of extensive bipartisan action by the Congress and by successive presidents. TikTok says it will now take its fight to the United States Supreme Court, the country's highest legal authority. The United States want TikTok sold or banned because of what it says are its owner links to the Chinese state, links TikTok and parent company ByteDance have always denied. The court agreed that the law was carefully crafted to deal only with control by a foreign adversary, and it was part of a broader effort to counter a well substantiated national security threat posed by the PRC. But TikTok said it was not the end of the legal fight. The Supreme Court has an established historical record of protecting Americans' right to free speech, and we expect that we will do just that on this important constitutional issue as well, a TikTok spokesperson said in the statement. They added that law was based on inaccurate, flawed, and hypothetical information, and a ban would censor US citizen. Donald Trump's victory in the 2024 US presidential election may also present a lifeline for the app. Despite unsuccessfully attempting to ban TikTok during its first term in 2020, he said in the run-up to the November elections he would not allow the ban on TikTok to take effect. Trump will be inaugurated on 20th January, the day after the law says TikTok must be banned or sold. However, it remains to be seen whether he will allow or follow through on his pre-elections war. President Professor James of Cornell University said the president-elect would be swimming upstream to give TikTok a reprieve. The anti-China sentiment in the US Congress is very strong, so there are now substantial constituencies in both parties that want TikTok to be restricted from the US market, he told BBC News. Now bringing you the latest update on today's market trends. Global market trends today paint a mixed picture as regional indices reveal a divergence in performance. In the Americas, US indices show resilience in the tech-heavy Nasdaq, which gained 0.6% to close at 19,000. The S&P 500 also edged up by 0.10, ending at 6,000, indicating optimism in broader equities. However, Dow Jones fell by 0.3%, reflecting a drag from traditional sectors. Volatility appeared, signaling relatively calm investor sentiment in US markets. Meanwhile, small cap stock measured by the Russell 2000 rose 0.27, suggesting pockets of confidence in the growth-oriented plays. Canada market also exhibited strength, with the S&P TSX Composite gaining 0.1% and S&P TSX 0.2% board, perhaps by the energy financial sector performance. In stark contrast, Latin America faced headwinds. Brazil's Bovespa 1.4%, shredding over 1,800 points, reflecting concern over political uncertainty and commodity market pressures. Similarly, Mexico's S&P fell by 0.6%. Chile's S&P dropped 0.1%, underscoring regional challenges. Globally, these trends indicate a cautious investor stance with a preference of US tech resilience and uneven economic condition in other parts of America as central bank policies and macroeconomic indicators evolve. Market direction remain uncertain. In today's commodity market, energy prices saw notable declines, with WTI crude oil dropping by 1.67% to 67%, Brent doll down $71. The slide in oil prices reflect concerns over potential demand slowdowns, possibly tied to economic uncertainty or increased production in key regions. Both benchmarks remain within their 52 years large. Weak momentum warrants attention in an impeached order. International market sentiments, NG remained nearly flat, chipping a marginal 0.06%. This lack of movement suggests a balance between oversupply concerns and stable seasonal demand. In the metal market, gold shined with a modest gain of 0.2%, closing at $2,000. This uptick comes amid a backdrop of investor cautious, with many likely seeking the safety of precious metals amid volatile energy prices. Silver, however, edged down by 0.3% to $31 reflecting divergent dynamic within the previous metal sector. Agriculture saw minimal movement with soya bean inching up by 0.1% to $9. This steady trend suggests no major disruption in supply or demand for the crop. Overall, the day's performance underscored a mixed narrative while energy commodities face downward pressure. Gold miner gains highlight a cautious pivot towards safe haven assets as the global economic outlook continues to evolve. Commodity prices are likely to remain sensitive to geopolitical and macroeconomic developments. We'll be right back after a short break. I'm Shweta Simar. Keep watching Millennium Daytime Bulletin.
Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Welcome back after the break. I'm Shweta Simar from New Delhi and you are watching Millennium Daytime Bulletin. Rohit Sharma won the toss and decided to make first use of the pitch of the Adelaide Oval by India were rattled out of the 180 thanks to some high-class bowling from Stark, who confirmed his status as most dangerous bowler in day-night test cricket. The left arm quick set the tone for an impressive Australia attack when he trapped Yashasvi Jaiswal LBW with the first delivery of the match. Stark haul also included the top order wickets of KL Rahul and Virat Kohli before another menacing spell later in India's inning blew away the lower order. His figure eclipsed the 650 he took against Sri Lanka at Gali in August 2016 and underlined his mastery with the pink ball. Nobody comes close to his 72 wickets in day-night test. Nitish Kumar Reddy struck 3 sixes as he top scored for India with a counter-attacking knock of 42 of 54 balls, including a spectacular reverse scoop of Scott Bloland. Australia faced a testing session under the floodlights and Jasprit Bumrah hungry for wickets on his 31st birthday. The India seamer was left looking to the heavens when the Nathan McSweeney edged him the Rohit at slip on 5 only for last chance to be grasped. Bumrah subsequently removed fellow opener Usman with a brute of a delivery which climbed into the left-hander's ribcage and nipped to take the edge, with Rohit holding a more straightforward catch. However, McSweeney and the under-pressure Marnus Labuschagne diligently battered through the stump without further loss and will resume on 38 and 20. The concentration of the pair was not even broken by 2 brief floodlights failures and a spectator wobbling a beer snake next to the side screen. Australian teenage sprinting sensation GOAT recorded the 4th fastest under 18 100 meters time in history on Friday, clocking in at 10.04 seconds at the All-School Athletics Championship in Queensland. This run, which came in the heats but was wind-assisted and therefore does not count in official records, was also the 4th fastest ever by an Australian sprinter of any age. The fastest ever under 18 time was set by US sprinter Erion Kington in 2021, a wind-headed assisted 9.99 seconds. His compatriot Jelani Watkins and Thai sprinter Puri Paul occupied second and third places, having each 10 and 2023 respectively. Later on the Friday, once tailwind had dropped, Gout ran a legal 10 seconds in the final and the 6th fastest legal under 18 times. I have been chasing this national record for a while now. In the heat, I thought I got it, but it was a crazy tailwind. So I just did the same thing and got the job done, said Gout afterwards per Athletics Australia. Gout broke into the scene in 2022 when he ran the 100 meters in 10.57 seconds as a 14-year-old. The last 2 years have been seen in Australian who turned 17 in late December draw comparisons to sprinting great Usain Bolt. He garnered even further attention in August when he clocked in at 2.06 seconds in the 200 meters at the 2024 World Athletics Under 20 Championships. Faster than 15-year-old Bolt managed in 2002 the record of all time. Goot will run in the 200-meter event on Saturday in Queensland. With the Adidas sponsorship deal secured and high hopes for what he could go on to achieve, Goat is already mixing with sprinting royalty. In January, I am going overseas to train with Noah Lyles and his coach Lance Broman. Hopefully we can qualify for the Tokyo World Championships, he said after Friday final. If not, I'll just finish my school in year 12. That's all for now. Thank you for tuning in. Stay with us for more updates. Log in to stay updated with the latest news on our social media platforms Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and TikTok at Millennium News 24. Don't forget to check out our YouTube channel Millennium News 24. You can watch us on Android, iOS devices as well as on Apple TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV and all smart TV platforms. Enjoy entertainment and latest news with us. Download the Millennium TV app, Millennium TV USA for Android, Millennium News on Google. Thank you for being part of Millennium News 24.